this video, we'll be talking about locators. This is the scope of this video. We are going to look into default locators, then locate by CSS and the XPath locator. When do you want to use getByPlaceholder? You will be using getByPlaceholder when for a field you don't have a label. Maybe it is not inside a form, but it has a placeholder text and you can use that placeholder text to get the element and put your test cases on top of it. Now we will learn about getByText. The best way to kind of track them and get them so that we can run additional tests on them is by getByText. Let us learn how to locate using the locator getByAllText. Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to the Playwright series, and I hope you are enjoying learning from this series. In the last video, we covered a lot of ground level stuff about Playwright. We spoke what Playwright is, what problem it solves, how to install, how to do setup, the VS Code extension, how to run the test, how to run the report, how to record your test, and then at the end we also showed how to run your test on Lambda test and get the great benefit out of it. In this video, we'll be talking about locators, one of the prominent feature from Playwright, and I hope you enjoy this video as well. And if you do so, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. Before we get started, let me introduce myself to you. Hey, this is Tapas, your instructor today, and a bit about me that I am a demand stack developer. It means that probably can code in multiple technologies and framework. Having around 20 years of experience, I am a teacher on my YouTube channel called TapasScript. You can check that out, and if you like, please subscribe there as well. I am an author on FreeCodeCamp blog. I have my own blog called Green Roots, is again another platform through which I share a lot of knowledge. I have an open source community called React Play. If you're interested into React, Next.js or any kind of web development around that, that's something that you should look forward to. And very recently, I have my own software firm called CreoWis Technologies as well. First thing first, let's understand what are locators. We know that Playwright is for end-to-end test. So it means that you will have your web application or the website and you will write Playwright test cases to test the flow on that particular website or the web application. Now to test the flow, the test cases must understand how to navigate across different pages, components and perform several actions. Now to perform several actions and to navigate on the components, it has to locate those components on those website and the web pages. That's where locators come into place. Locators are the way to find elements on the page. There are built-in locators, we are going to talk about them. There are CSS locators, we are going to see plenty of examples. And there are XPath Locator, that also we are going to cover. So first, let's get started understanding the built-in locators. And as we have done last time, we will talk through the code. So we will write code and try to explain and understand how things work. What we are not going to cover is the installation, is setting up the initial configurations, all those things that we have seen in the previous video. So if you are coming to this video directly and if you are not aware how to set things up with Playwright and JavaScript, I would recommend you first see the previous video and then get started from here. Here I have created a Playwright project. My spec folder name as 𝐸2𝐸. This is where I'm going to keep all the spec files. And from the previous video, you already know, like using the VS Code extension of Playwright, how can you run the test even for a particular project or the browser target, and with many other settings that you would like to opt for. I'm going to create one new file for my spec files. It's called playground.spec.js. Inside this spec file, I'm going to create all my tests, and to create all the tests, of course, I have to import a few stuff. The first thing will be the test itself, and then expect from playwright/test. All the tests we are going to keep inside together under a test suite. So we will do like test.describe. We will use an e-commerce playground website to run our test. So testing an e-commerce playground, and then we have this function over here. Inside that we can write all other tests. All right, now it's time to start writing tests using the default locator. So what are the default locators? This is the scope of this video. We are going to look into default locators, then locate by CSS and the XPath locator. In default locators, we will have walkthrough on these locators like page.getByRole, which is like locate by role, then by label, by placeholder, by text, by alt text, by title, by TestId. We are going to see example and code for each of this, and then we are going to get into locate by CSS and finally locate by XPath, and then we'll also see like how to combine them together. So let's get started with the first default locator, which is getByRole. We will use the same e-commerce website that we used in the previous video because it has a lot of different features which will help us in trying out different test cases. The first one is by role. When you say locate by role, it means that we'll be using a method called getByRole given by the locator object from Playwright, using which we will be able to locate any element. In getByRole, we pass usually the accessible name of an element. For example, radio button, checkbox, button, text, link. These are the things that we pass. These are the accessible name that a human or any other assistive technologies understand. We don't say a tag or anchor tag. That's the tag in HTML, but we say link because that's how the assistive technologies or the human understand an anchor tag. So with getByRole, if I have to write a test, I'll be doing like this. Let's do a test, and the test we are interested in, let's say click on the search button. There is a search button into that e-commerce website, and then of course we will do an async function. Here we get the page object. Now inside this we can write all our test cases. So first would be to go to that particular e-commerce website. So for that await page.goto, and I pass the e-commerce website URL to this. Of course this will be the curly braces because we are destructuring it. Yeah, now we are good with the goto. Now if I see that web page once, I have a button over here. It's called a search button, right? And if I do inspect, I have a button. This is the accessible name that I was talking about. So then we can use the getByRole now, page.getByRole, and in this method we will locate by a button with the accessible name, and then we will pass a clause or the qualifier saying that if the button name is search, in that case simulate a click on the button. That's our first test case that we have achieved using getByRole. Let's run this. To run this, what we have to do, we will go to this testing, and over here, this example one we are not interested anymore. We have our own playground.spec.js, and we can run on Chromium, Firefox, WebKit. To start with, let us run on all three. Maybe subsequent test will run into one of them so that we can save time. And then inside that we can see testing and e-commerce playground, and inside that click on the search button. So let's run this one selectively. This is one way you can run. Another way, you can directly come to the test and click here and run it. So it's running. Now you should see this coming up. Browser, search will be clicked now. Yeah, search got clicked and I can see the search. This is another browser got started. Again, search will be clicked. A search at the background, we have another browser because we are given for 3 browsers. Here also search will be clicked and we'll see the result. So for all the 3 browsers, we have tested it and the test is passed. We are able to locate a button by its role, which is the accessible name, the button, and then by the qualifier name as search, and then simulated a click action on top of that. So that's getByRole. After getByRole, the next one in the list is getByLabel. While you use the getByRole locator to locate elements, that is how user and the assistive technology perceive a page. But in terms of getByLabel, you will use it more when you want to locate fields from the form. So in form, usually you will have label, and for the label, there will be a connected field. For example, I have a form over here, which is say returning customer. And if I just inspect this one out, I will see this is a form, and inside the form there is a label, and there is a for attribute. If you can see over here, let me also zoom in. So this is the form. Inside the form there is a label, and there is a for attribute, and for this attribute connected to this particular input field through is ID. Usually the input field's ID will be the same as the corresponding labels for attribute. That's how they are connected. Now when you are testing a form with your end-to-end test using Playwright, you can test that, you can get the element by labels. These are the labels that we are talking about. So let's implement certain test cases to test out this form, like this email address, maybe filling up this email address and filling up this password and do something with it, right? So let's get into code. So get by label and the test that I have named as login form. Just like before, await page.go to, instead of going to the home page, now I'm directly going to the URL where that particular form is there, right? So this is the code so far. Now usually these labels will be unique within a form. So within a form there will be distinguished fields, and for each of the field there will be distinguished label. So we can write a test case now to check and test that in that form whether there is an email address and the password label exists, and if it is exist only once. So for that our test will be await. Now we have to bring the expect because we will be testing it against something, like, so that is the assertion we have to keep in mind. And then over here we have to do page dot get by label. This is where we are using the function get by label. We are interested in this particular label called email address, and we want to be exactly same, so exactly true. And then we'll end this expect, and we expect to have count of 1 because this is what we are expecting, only one email address, right? Let me just take out WebKit and Firefox for now. We'll be only testing on Chrome, and let's test this guy, login form. So I see this particular test has passed. So it means that there is only one email address on this particular form page. Okay. Now do the same test for the password as well. I'll keep this one open, and here we can just copy this one and then paste it below. Change the label name to password because that's what the label name is, and say have count 1. Now this will run well and it is giving me that it is passed. Now let me make this count to 2 to fail this test. The first one will be passed but the second one will fail. As you see, this one already passed, and this is what is going to fail because it won't satisfy it. It is as a saying that expected 2 but it received only 1 because there is only one label with it. Alright, so this is good. Now let me fix it back because I am going to add a few more with get label. What I can do is, like, I am identifying this one, this particular guy, page.getByLabel email address. I am getting this one. Now after getting this one, what I can do, await, get this guy, and then use fill. That means filling that particular form field that is connected to this level. So let's fill it up with tapas@email.com. Similarly, we can fill a password as well. I'm just copying that for that purpose and saying this as password. Let's give it a password. Let's say secret is a password. And now let us run this test. And while I'm running it, I'm going to open the browser so that you can see like how things are going on. Now we'll see, we'll go see here, email address tapas@email.com, password over here. Now on top of that, you can also get the button, locate the button, not by label, but by role, and simulate a click handler, for example. So then this particular form will be submitted. Easy, right? That's how we combine different kind of locators together. This is the operation we have done by getByLabel. This login one you can do getByRole and simulate a click button after that. Try that. Next in the list is getByPlaceholder. When do you want to use getByPlaceholder? You will be using getByPlaceholder when for a field you don't have a label. Maybe it is not inside a form, but it has a placeholder text, and you can use that placeholder text to get the element and put your test cases on top of it. Let's see that as an example. Here on the playground, we can find a text field which is having a placeholder text called search for products. And if I inspect this one, I don't see a label around it. So this is a perfect use case for me to take this particular text box as an example, and I can locate it using its search for products, this particular placeholder, and do something with it. Maybe I will fill it with a text like iPhone, And the moment I do that, it's probably going to search things, right? So if I do iPhone, this is the one that I'm going to test out, right? I have a test called search product, and I'm going to this home page. Now after coming here, I can write the test like await page.getByPlaceholder, and then the placeholder is search for products. In this page, there are multiple text box with search for products, one for the mobile view and another for the web view. So I want to take the first one, which is for the web view, and then fill it with a text, let's say iPhone. That's all my test. Let me just go ahead and run this test and see how it works. I'll run it from here. It will start running now. Go to the home page, and then iPhone should come over here. Yes, you can see this particular test got executed and is successful. So this is the example where we have used getByPlaceholder instead of getByLabel, because the label was not present. We can do it using the placeholder. Now we will learn about getByText. Usually our web pages will be a combination of interactive and non-interactive elements. Interactive elements means button, anchor tag, input, those. Non-interactive element means div, span, paragraph, those. Now getByRole, the one that we have seen, should be used most for the interactive elements like button, anchor, means link, input, all this. But for non-interactive elements like div, span, p, if you want to locate them, then you should be using getByText, because div, span, p, means paragraph, this interactive elements doesn't have a placeholder. They don't have a label. So the best way to kind of track them and get them so that we can run additional test on them is by getByText. So let's see that example. Now for that, we can test out this particular text. Like we have some discount text, and also there is like top trending categories. So if I just go ahead and inspect these things, these are mere like this H4, which contain just the text. So it's the right candidate for doing a test using getByText. So this is the home page. With that, we'll go to VS Code, and we have discount banner showing discount percentage. This is what we are testing. This is the home page. So let's go ahead and start doing getByText. So we'll do await page.getByText. Here we will get that particular text like, up to 50% off. So I have this text up to 50% off on fully automatic top load washing machine. And then along with that, we will put the criteria as exact true. And then this one, after we get this element, we can put an expect around, and we expect this one to be visible, right? So let us run this test. Let's see if it is successful or not. Great. So this test is success. We can see in 146 milliseconds, this test has been successful. Now let's write another one. We will check for this top trending categories, but instead of top trending categories, we'll say top trending category, something like this. Page.getByText top trending category, exact true. And in this case, the method that we will be using, the assertion is to be hidden. Means with this text, we are not supposed to find any elements, right? Because on the UI, it was top trending categories, the plural. Here we have taken category. Now let's run this one as well. All right, so both of them finished running. This is in 24 milliseconds, this is in 13 milliseconds. So that's how you understood how getByText works. After getByText, let us learn how to locate using the locator getByAltText. When an element support the alt attribute, especially images, we know, right? Area as well. Those are the cases we can use this locator. So on the e-commerce playground, I am on this page where I have bunch of products and their images. So if I go and inspect one of them, I will see this image over here, image tag. And in this image tag, I have this alt, right? ALT, which is having iPod touch. And not using this, I can pick this up and run some test on it, right? I can see like whether this particular element, which is having an alt text of this, is visible on my web page or not. So I have a test called iPod touch. I'm going to the same URL. So here I'll be writing my test. I can write like await page.getByAltText, and the alt text was iPod touch. Alt text are not unique. There could be multiple alt text people can use. And then I will do a first so that I pick up the first one. This is what my locator is. Now using this locator, I can write one expect, and I'll write dot to be capital to be visible. So that's my test. Let me run that test. We'll go to the page and expect this guy to be visible. Yes, it is. One good part about Locator is it will wait for your elements to load. That's how the Playwright is really cool, right? You don't have to do anything additional. And this await keyword actually for that, so that it happens and take care of the asynchronous call, right? So it will wait for this element to load, and once the element gets loaded, it will run the test, do the proper assertion, and then give you the expected versus actual output result. That's how it is. Great. So we learn get by alt text. Now we'll learn get by title. We will find few elements having the title attribute. So taking that title, we can locate elements and then we can run test on it. Here on this page, I have bunch of images which are inside the anchor tag, and each of those anchor tag is having a title called Palm Treo Pro. So I can get this anchor tag using this title Palm Treo Pro and then check the stuff, right? We can do that testing. So let's go to VS Code and let's write our test. First the locator await page dot get by title, and then the title is Palm Treo Pro, and this is a locator. Now this locator we can put inside an expect, and then what we can do how many such anchor tags are there, or how many such elements are there which have this title, right? So I counted on that particular page using the DOM query that there are 24. So I can do like to have count pass 24 over here. Let's see if this is passing or not. So I'll run it. My web page will open up. Is it the proper page? It is passing. So we have 24 such elements which is having title with this particular value. If I just change this one, say 22, and then run it again, this time this is going to fail. It's running. As we see, it's failing because it says that there are 24. It is also marking like 2 of 24, 1 of 24, etc. But here you are clearly seeing, that as we have given 22, it's failing. After title, we are going to see the locators by test ID. This one is a little bit tricky. There might be some time that you cannot perform your text or the element locations using just role and text. Also, the role and text are such that those might change based on the code changes and all. That time you want to rely on something like a test ID, and you want to configure your Playwright project in such a way that you can inject those test IDs to your element, and then taking those test IDs, you can locate the element where you are not able to locate the element using role or text, or you think that those changes very frequently. For those cases, you won't rely on them. Rather, you have more resilient way of testing is with test IDs. So let's see this example now with test ID, and let's learn that how it works. For this test ID test alone, we won't be using this e-commerce playground that we have used so far, because we have to now inject a new test ID, and I also want to show how to configure Playwright project with a new test ID and how to inject it in an application. So let us create our own application, very simple application, a simple test.html page, and we'll run that test.html page locally, and there we will inject this test ID. All right. Now first is a configuration with Playwright. For that purpose, go to playwright.config.js file. This is a file. Open this up, and there you will find something called use. So you have use over here. You will already find by default there is something called trace. Along with that, let us add one more attribute called test ID attribute. And now you can give any name of your choice. For example, I can give data-pw, means data-playwright. You can give any name of your choice. So this is my test ID attribute. Then on the project root folder, let me create a new file, say test.html. Let me create a simple HTML using VS Code emit. So very simple test HTML. Let's give a title called test HTML. And now inside body, let me create a button. Simple HTML element again, and give a text to the button called left. Now here I can inject the test ID just now I have created using the configuration called data-pw with a value, let's say direction. Fair enough. So we have a button with data-pw attribute whose value is direction, and it's a left directed button. That's what it is. Now let me run this one. I'll go live, clicking on this go live extension, live server. I got this test HTML now. It's rendered on my browser. It's showing this left button. If I go and inspect, I'm able to see this button with data-pw. So now this data-pw I can use to write my test. For that, I'll go to playground.spec.js file, and over here, let me start writing my new test. I'll give a test name, let's say test direction button, and here async function is structuring the page. So first go to go to my application, which is running on this particular localhost 127.0.0. Just now I ran it, and after that it's time to use the locator called getByTestId, and the value that I have to give is direction, and on top of that I'll give the click. So it means now by this test ID value direction, which is there in my test.html over here, and I have already configured this one data-pw as my test ID attribute inside the config.js file. See over here. So these are now connected. Now if I run this test, what will happen? It will open up my test.html. We'll find this button having this data-pw with which the project is already configured, and it will simulate a click action. So let's go ahead and start running this. It opened up. I saw the left over here, and you can see the test has passed over here. Perfect, right? So this is how you can use the locator getByTestId when you cannot use by role or by text, or you think that role and text changes very frequently. I hope it makes sense to you. So with this, we have now covered all the default locators. It's time that we start learning about CSS Locator and then the XPath Locator. Browser understand HTML, JavaScript and CSS. The CSS mostly used for styling the element, and we use a pattern that tell our browser like which HTML element to style with CSS. The pattern is called CSS selector. CSS has ID, CSS has class, HTML has different tags, different elements. Now using CSS or CSS selector, we locate these elements by their ID or the class name, or sometime by the HTML elements itself or the HTML tag itself. So there are various ways we can do. If an element having an ID, say some ID, we can locate it using the hash symbol and then say some ID. If it is having a class, say some class, we can give this dot symbol and say some class. If there is a paragraph element, we can actually locate using a sp tag. If there is a paragraph element and having a class, let's say text, we can say p.text. So there are a bunch of ways that we can use these selectors to get to the element that we are interested to style. Now the same philosophy we can take forward to locate the elements using Playwright Locators. So Playwright supports CSS selectors that we can pass in and then select the element that matches the selector, and after that we get the element, we can run our test on it. So let us see a few examples through which we'll be able to understand that how we compose those CSS selectors and how are we going to use them to run our test. Let's take up this particular login page over here, right? So there is a form which has email address, password and a login button. Now if I select this input element, the input element is having an ID called input-email. So I can locate it using the CSS selector called hash input-email because it's an ID. Now there is a password box just below it. I can do a CSS selector like input type equals to password to select this, type equals to submit button to select this button. So I can do all the selectors on this particular page, right? So let's copy this URL and then go to this page and start writing some test using the CSS selectors. So we are testing using CSS locator strategy and going to the same login page. Let us start write the test, a few tests. So await page dot locator, and here we'll be doing our first CSS locator, which is hash input hyphen email, and then using that, let's fill that email box with an email, say tapas@email.com. Let's see if this much works or not. Let's run this test with our first CSS selector. We'll go to the login page and it filled the email box with tapas@email.com. So it is working. Similarly, let us write few more tests. Let's locate the password field using input name equals to password. This is another CSS selector. And this also, let's do a fill using a password, say secret. Similarly, we can also locate the input type submit button and do a click handler. So now let's run this test. So we'll fill the email box, we'll fill the password box, and then click on the submit button, all using CSS selector. Let's go to the login page. All right, fill the email, password and login. All right, and then we also get a warning over here. Now let's do something little more complex. Let me inspect this warning, and as I identify, let me make it bigger so that you can understand this completely. So I have a div. The div is having something called alert and alert danger, alert dismissible as class, and this is inside another div called account-login, and in the danger class div I have this particular text. So now I can create a CSS selector for this entire hierarchy. First, catch this div, the top level div, using this ID like hash account-login, and then inside that catch this div with this alert and the alert danger, because there could be alert success also. This will be always under danger because this didn't match. And then inside that I will see like this particular text is visible or not. So let's do this. So for that I'll do await page.locator, and here first hash account-login. That's what it was, right? Now I'll give a space because the next selector is the child of account-login. It has a class called alert, and at the same div level it has another class called alert-danger, DANGER. So this is my locator. Now taking this locator, I'll be able to locate that particular div where that alert message has shown. Now here I can expect this particular locator to be visible. So to be visible. All right. So now first fill the email box, fill the password box, then click on submit button. Error will come. On that error, see that the error is really coming or not. That's the test case. So let's go ahead and start running it. Login screen filled up. Yes, everything is passed. We can see all the things are passed. So we have now learned how to locate using CSS. Let's see XPath. So XPath, or the XML path language, is a special syntax, that used for navigating through the XML document, and we can use the same thing for our DOM selector as well. In fact, if you go to any web page and let's say you have selected this particular input, right? Now right click on it and say copy. Here you have bunch of options, right? So here you can do say copy XPath or copy full XPath. When you do copy XPath, it will copy the relative XPath. Relative XPath means it will copy the XPath of it from here, right? But if you copy the full XPath, it will copy from the top level node is from the HTML. So let's see if I copy this particular XPath and paste it over here. So you can see it is a relative XPath. It is for that particular ID input password. But the same thing, if I now right click, copy and do copy full path, you will see a drastic difference. So it is starting from the top level root HTML, then inside that there is a body, then pick up the first div, inside that pick up the fifth div, then again first div, then again div, like that it is reaching to that input. And there is a distinguishable difference. One is like for relative XPath, it will always start with the double slash, and for absolute XPath, it will always start with the single slash. In most of the cases, you will try to use the relative XPath over the absolute XPath, because for absolute XPath, you have to really write a longer XPath and you really need to traverse a lot. So this is something we are going to see, both the example right now. So as you see, we have a test for XPath Locator strategy. And in this test, we are going to the home page of our again e-commerce playground. And over there, I have copied a XPath. And this XPath is going to locate to something called my account, a particular UI control. And on that, I'm going to do a hover. So hover and some drop down or something might come out, right? So that's the test I'm running. But while running this test, I'm using the XPath as a locator. So let's see this example. Let me run this one. Notice that this my account, yeah, you saw that hover. So login and register, that hover has come. This is what I had located. Similarly, the absolute and the relative, if I have to differentiate, let's take up one more page, this particular page, where the same element, same button element, I have first located with the absolute path. So I started with the /HTML, and I have used this particular notation here, XPath equals to this one, and also you see it started with single slash. And the same thing I have actually done in the similar level, same click operation using a relative path. So the relative path is like going to a particular div. Inside that you find add to cart button, normalize the text. Basically this means that remove multiple spaces, trailing or leading spaces and all this thing, and you identified this button and do a click. So let's see, let's run this to once again along with the previous test case. So first we'll see the home page, we'll see the hover action, we saw that. Then we'll go to the next page, the product page, and then you will see add to cart. Yeah, you are seeing add to cart twice because the first one happened through the absolute and the next one happened through the relative XPath. So this is the example of XPath. I hope you understood this one. One thing that I want to call out, like when you should be using CSS selector and the XPath selector over all other selector that you spoke, you will be using CSS selector and the XPath selector as the last selector option. You won't be using them as the frequently used locators, because both depending on the DOM hierarchy heavily, and we know like in the UI development the DOM hierarchy changes a lot. So if that changes means it is going to change the CSS selector, it is going to change the XSS path as well. So mostly rely on roles that we have seen than the CSS and the XPath. Now let me show you a test with a combination of all the locators. So the test that you are seeing on your screen right now, search products and buy. See here, we are going to a page with the page.goto and the URL. Right after that, we have located this one, search for products by placeholder, something by placeholder, and we are making a click. This is the text field basically. We are making a click on the text field so that it gets the focus. And then on the same one, we are filling it with something called phone. So filling it with the text. Then next we are using another locator called getByRole, and there is a button called search. We are making a click on that search. So it means there is a text field which is having a placeholder search for products, filling it, and then there is a button called search. We are clicking it. After that we are locating that dot product hyphen thumb, which is a CSS selector, means a class product hyphen thumb. With that we are locating, going to nth child, second child with the nth, and clicking on that. So this must be some kind of thumbnail of the product. We are taking the second product, clicking on that, and then we are again going to a button using a role which is having a name called buy now and doing a click on it. So this is example of one test where we have used varieties of locators using CSS locator, placeholder locator, role, getting by role, and then we are doing our job. So if I run this one, first it will perform the search, say phone, then it will search, then from there it will go to this particular one's page and came to this checkout page. That's what it is like. Buy now, when you click on it, it will come to the checkout page, that particular product. So this flow we have tested using the combination of different kind of locators. So this is one example. Like this, you can try out different combination, try out some examples yourself so that you can also learn with some hands-on practice. Let me show you another usage of locator. So here I have brand pump viewed 64925, availability out of stock, and if I inspect it, I see this is a ULLI, so it means it is an unordered list. Now if you want to locate an element using an unordered list, how can you do that? So let me do this one. So let me show it using this example itself. I'll copy this URL, and first I'm having this page.goto on that particular URL, and the test is test items in the list. Using the CSS selector, the CSS locator, I can go to a particular li item like this, page.locator, div having an ID, and then ul and li. So if I go, this is a div having this ID, and then inside that there is a ul, and then I'm selecting li. And here I'm checking there are 3 LIs or not. So that is what my test case is. It is checking to have a count 3 or not. After that, I can check on each of those LI what kind of text that I want to test. So on each of those LI, I am expecting to have it a text brand : palm, viewed : 64769, availability out of stock. Let me run this. So first I'll go to the page, success, to have count 3, success. This is still trying to run. Let's see what happened. It failed. Why it failed? Because it's saying that I expected view to be 64769, but I have given the views over here is 64726. So this viewed thing has not matched. I have given 64769. So as I refresh, I see this count is increasing. It is now 64930. So next time it will be 64931. So I have given now 64931. Let me run this test. Now it should pass. Yes, both the tests passed, I can see. So this is one way that you can navigate inside your list with ULI and do tests like how many elements are there in the list, what is the text in each of these elements, what are the testing you need. As we covered most of the locators that we promised for this video, it's time that we also cover how to run these locators with Lambda test. In the last video itself, we have explained like why Lambda test is very important, especially with the cases where you don't have some of this environment with you on which you want to run the test. For example, you may not have Windows 11, you may not have certain browser, and you can use Lambda test very easily to push some of these test cases that we have written, run it, monitor it, see whether it is failing, and do a bunch of things around it. I have an account with Lambda test. I can go to my dashboard. And again, I'm not getting into too much into configurations because in the previous video, I have showed with step by step, like how to get your credentials, how to get your keys, where to keep the keys in the .env file. Everything was covered. It will be a just repetition. But here, what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to use a similar kind of script that we have developed in the previous video. And in that script, I'm going to inject some of these locator test cases and then run the script and see how that is getting into my Lambda test environment and how I can put my analysis. So here are the things that you need to be mindful about. You should have a .env file. I have showed this in the last video, where you will be keeping your LT_username, means Lambda test username, Lambda test access key. All this, both the things are available under your settings, profile settings. Once you have that, you also should be installed .env, because now we'll be creating a script file which is called playwright-lambdatest.js, and this script file will have a few settings for you to push your test to Lambda test. Most of this script we have got the explanation in the last video, clearly saying with the configuration saying that, okay, I'm going to use the platform as Windows 11. I'm going to use my user and the access key from the environment variable that's there in the .env file. And how to get this username access key, you know that you can go to Lambda test UI, go to your profile setting, you can get them. Then I have the network video console. This is where the Lambda test is really awesome. You can check all the network calls, what happened, you can get the actual video, the entire simulation you can see, the console tab you can see, you can do further debugging. And then over here, you have to use this WS endpoint to connect to Lambda test. From using that, you will get browser, and using the browser, you get page. Now, once you have the page, it is basically about the test. These are the tests that we have written. Locator CSS, we have just written that, we ran it as a standalone. Then locator XPath also, we have run same test. I just copy pasted over here inside this try catch. And in the catch, we are saying whether the test is successful or not. That's pretty much it. This is what is this file doing. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do very quickly is to run this. It will take a while. If there is an error, we'll get an error here itself. Otherwise, we won't get any error, means it is success. So there is no error. It means that it is success. Now let me go to Lambda test, go to web automation. I can see this Playwright Lambda test has come today. Now I can go inside, it's also successful. Here I can see all the commands that happen, basically fill, check, expect, navigating to URL, doing the hover, click, everything, right? So all that part of our test cases. If there are any logs, we'll be able to see in the console log over here. The network calls, you'll be able to see, you can see all the network calls because it went to that particular website, right? So all the network calls you can see over here, metadata, all the metadata information, start time, when it started, when it ended. And finally this video, that's going to show you the entire process that took place. I just made it full screen. You can see that all the tests are running using CSS selector and the XPath, whatever we have done. All the things that you're able to see. Yeah, cool enough. And then from here you can create an issue. If there is an issue, you can share this test. So you can do a lot of stuff using Lambda test. I hope you found this helpful too. So if you're here till the end, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for learning. I hope you found it insightful. Before you go away, I just want to let you know that there are a few links that you should be aware of. One is Lambda test community. You can join the community. You can ask questions, get things from the community. You can do a Lambda test certification. So the link is available over there. And also if you want to experiment out or if you want to check out various Lambda test project, you can also go to Lambda test GitHub. With that, thank you very much. Keep learning. We'll come back again in this Playwright series with another informative video. Take care.